I'd love you to hear from Darrell. So Darrell, come and tell us a little bit about, were you sort of brought up as a church-going Christian or anything like that?
No. I was about as far removed from church as you can possibly get. Wasn't quite the Antichrist, but wasn't quite far away from that, yeah.
Just say a little bit about what did your life involve growing up?
I grew up, I'm obviously not a southerner, as you can tell by the Peter Kay-ish twang to my voice. I'm from the north. I grew up just outside Leeds. And I grew up in a rough area, rough estate, Warwick estate. It was a kind of estate, the police don't go on it after dark, buses don't run onto it after dark. If you drive through it slower than 30 miles an hour, you'll lose your wheels. And I just kind of fell into, it wasn't a conscious choice, I just fell into crime at a really early age. Sort of 10, 11, using drugs, drinking, smoking, and getting into crime. And bizarrely, it started with a bit of a hobby, stealing car badges from expensive cars. And so there's lots of expensive cars around here. I've seen quite a few.
So, and I think you moved up, and eventually you did a fairly serious crime.
Yeah, as my drug use grew, and I became a well-known drug dealer, and I started selling heroin and cocaine, and I sort of moved up the ladder. And we were turning over quite a lot of money, thousands of pounds a week. There's 3 of us. I'm the only one left alive. One of my friends, I held him while he died of overdose, and the other one was shot and killed while I was in prison. And when I was asked, another associate came to me and said, "Do you want to get involved in an armed robbery?" And I just, yeah, well, why not? Why not?
As you do.
As you do.
And what happened?
I was the driver. So I went and I stole a car, crossed the border into South Yorkshire, stole the car and brought it back into West Yorkshire because there was at least a 7-day period before South Yorkshire police would tell West Yorkshire police that the car had been stolen, so you could drive round quite happily without being pulled over.
So you did the robbery?
We did the robbery. We thought we'd got away with it, and the first I knew that we hadn't got away with it was when the armed response and the dogs and the Black Maroyers were kicking my door down. So yeah, it caught up with me in the end.
And how long were you sent to prison for?
5.5 years. I did just short of 4.
And when you got into prison, how did you respond to that?
Oh, once I was in there and I knew I was going to be there for a while, I thought, Darrell, if you're going to be bad, you're going to be the best kind of bad you can possibly be. And I consigned myself to being as violent as I could possibly be, continuing to sell drugs while I was inside, and bringing them into the prison through visits in various different ways. And I got into lots of fights, lots of violence, assaulting prison officers, spent a lot of time in segregation on 24-hour lockdown, and moved around a lot.
And someone came and asked you a question. Tell us about it.
I was in a welding shop in HMP Wolds, a Category A prison near Hull. And there was a guy coming round with a clipboard, another inmate with a clipboard. It wasn't someone I'd speak to, he was a muppet. It wasn't... And I thought he was signing people up to like an education program or something. And he came up to me and he said, "Would you like to go on an alpha course?" I said, "Well, what's an alpha course?" He said, "Oh, it's in the chapel." And as soon as he said chapel, I thought, "Oh, great, Bible basher." And I said, "Look, get out of my face before I slap you." And he was under no illusion that I would have slapped him. And he did the best impression of Speedy Gonzales I've ever seen. He just shot off. And but God bless him and his courage, because he came back the following day with his clipboard. And he came up to me, and I was about to dish him out the slap I'd promised him the day before, when he blurted out really quickly, "You get Wednesday afternoon out of Bang Up, you get free coffee and you get free biscuits." I said, "I'll see you on Wednesday, sunshine."
And I think you took 1 or 2 people with you?
I did. I went round the workshop and I rounded up all my mates from the workshop and said, "Come on, lads, we're going on Alpha." It was my first evangelistic act and my outreach event, all rolled into one.
And what happened to you on Alpha?
When I arrived there, I don't know what I was expecting, but I wasn't expecting what I found. There was a chaplain from the prison, and the other 2 people running the course, it was 2 retired nuns. How old have you got to be a retired nun? It was less age concern and more mummy returns. It was...
And what was it that got you about those 2 women?
These 2 ladies... Oh, we laid into them. We gave them a hard time. The usual stuff. God doesn't exist. Even if he did, what's he ever done for me? What do you know about life? You've been in a nunnery for 50 years. What can you tell me about living? But these 2 ladies, they just came back at us and never got angry, not once. And they came back at us with love and compassion over and over again. These 2 girls, were just love bombs. And they just... they just kept on loving, kept on coming with a compassion. And that's a pretty big sledgehammer to get hit with, especially I thought I would never feel anything other than anger and hate ever again. I didn't think I had the capacity to love or feel love ever again in my life. I was dead on the inside. So when they hit me with that love sledgehammer, it hit me hard.
Eventually you prayed a prayer. What was the prayer that you prayed?
Got to the end of the course and I sat in my cell and I tried the sinner's prayer that you get on the pamphlets. Didn't work for me. And I just said, God, if you're real, I had a few swear words in it, but I'll edit them out. God, if you're real, prove it. Take away my drug addiction. Take away my violent nature. Take away all this anger and bitterness that are just ripping me apart inside. And if you do that for me, I will live the rest of my life for you. And when I said it, I meant it. The only thing you've got in prison really is your word. And I really did mean it. If I said to someone, I'm going to break your jaw, I would. So when I said to God, do this for me and I'll do that for you, I meant it with every fibre of my being.
And what happened?
Nothing. I went to bed. And but the following morning, I don't know what I was expecting. No booming voice, shaking cell door, nothing. But when I woke up the next morning, there was a series of really freaky events within the first hour of getting out of bed. First thing, I'd usually roll over and grab a cigarette and smoke it in bed. I was always gagging for a fag first thing in the morning. And as soon as I touched the cigarette, I felt violently sick. I felt like I was going to projectile vomit across the cell. Couldn't stand the thought of it, touch, smell, nothing. I freaked out. I threw it out of my cell window. I had to get it out of my cell. Then the thought of the tobacco I had popped into my head and the sickness came back. I grabbed the tobacco and threw that out of the cell window too. And then usually after smoking the cigarette, I'd smoke a spliff. But as soon as that thought popped into my head, I became even more sick. And I grabbed my cannabis and I threw that out of the window too. So whoever was on yard cleaning duty that morning must have thought it was Christmas come early.
And then I think you went to shave. What happened then?
Yeah, I was freaking out. I said, Darrell, calm yourself down, sunshine. Just go, get a wash, get a shave. I went to the sink, started getting a wash and shave, and I looked in the mirror, and I did not recognize the guy in the mirror. The smile, and the beaming, and the glowing. And then I noticed I wasn't just looking happy, I was feeling happy. Not just happy, euphorically happy. It was as if someone had unscrewed the top of my head and just poured freezing cold water in, and everything had gone. The anger had gone, the addiction had gone. I couldn't explain how, but all that ball of anger that was eating me had been replaced with this huge ball of joy, and I was just feeling a high, 1,000,000 times higher than any combination of any drug I'd ever had.
How did your friends, your mates there, react to what had happened to you?
Standing up within that prison setting and saying I was renouncing violence and I was giving my life to Jesus and I was going to walk away from the life I had, it was a big gamble for me because it opened me up to attack. People would use that as an opportunity to get themselves up the pecking order, so slashing, stabbing, scolding, it was all a possibility. And a couple of days later, I was on the exercise yard and a lad got right in my face, and he wouldn't have dared have attempted this a few days before, but he saw the opportunity and he got right in my face. My blood started to boil. My hands started to shake. I could visualize in my head I wanted to grab his ears and put his nose into the back of his head. I could see what I wanted to do. And then this voice came into my head and it just said, you're not that man anymore. And as soon as I heard it, I knew what I had to do. I had to turn around and I had to walk away. And as soon as I turned, I started to walk, and every step I got further away from him, the calmer I became, until I was completely and utterly at peace, and I heard the voice again, you're not that man anymore. It helped that one of the other lads jumped in and said, listen, he might have changed, but I haven't, so shut your mouth.
And you started running Alpha. We've heard, we heard Paul Carley telling us that Alpha's now running in 80% of the prisons in this country, and we hear it running in all these prisons. But what's it actually like? Because you actually ran it in the prison.
We did. With the help of the chaplaincy team, we were the inmates running the course, and this was really in the early days of Alpha, so all we had was Nicky on a VHS tape and books, and back in those days, Nicky had much darker hair, and it was a long time ago, and we just ran it because we knew it worked. as a tool just to tell people about Jesus, give them the opportunity to ask questions and get answers. And these guys were hungry. They were itching to find a way out of the lifestyle they found themselves in. And for them to be given an open door to say, look, this is your opportunity for a fresh start, they were snapping it up. And we were running alphas back to back. Hundreds of people coming to church on a Sunday. It was revival in the prison. The prison had to open up turn 2 of the wings into drug-free units because so many people were choosing to live Christ's way with a drug-free lifestyle. So
amazing. When you came out of prison, a pastor who was also a magistrate approached you and asked you to come and work with him.
He did. Mark Finch, who's my senior pastor, he and also a magistrate, as you say, he took I had this opportunity to go and work for the church in Runcorn, Hope Corner Community Church. The only advice I had from the Scousers in the prison was, don't go there, mate, it's the toilet. That was it. That was my advice. But I could not shake it. I went to Runcorn. Mark picked me up from the prison gate, so we went straight into starting the new schools. It was a new church plant, and it's just grown and expanded and exploded.
And he introduced you to his family?
He did. I met his wife, Karen, who made me the best beef lasagna I'd had for years. I had been in prison, but it was still pretty good. And that was the first time I met his eldest child, who is his daughter, Rebecca, who is now the mother of my 2 children and my beautiful wife. So, thank you.
So, just say what you're doing now. What's your passion? What's your vision?
We work really closely. We have a great project working with young people who are they're basically on the dumping ground. They're permanently excluded from education. They're in the youth justice system, permanently excluded from special educational needs schools. These are kids no one else wants. We take them, we love them, we educate them, we build their self-esteem. Many of them come to know Christ, get involved in the youth work that we do. And it's grown to such a degree now where we're building a whole new centre from the ground up. We're almost got it finished. We're almost there. The whole of the second floor is going to be the first church-run independent special educational needs school in the borough of Halton. So we're breaking some great new ground, and God's really opening some amazing doors for us.
A question I always ask people is, what difference has Jesus made?
I don't say this lightly. I really do mean it. He's more important to me than the air I'm breathing. Without him, I wouldn't be here. I've been shot at, I've been stabbed, I should be dead, I've overdosed, I don't know how many times, I should not be here. And yet here I stand. And if you stand still long enough, I'm going to tell you about Jesus. And I would encourage each and every one of you with this new season of Alpha starting, if you haven't been on Alpha, if you're sitting there with doubts and questions, you're just not sure whether you should or you shouldn't, what have you got to lose? Choosing Jesus is a win-win situation. You cannot lose. There is nothing to lose. It's not like choosing a mortgage provider. You don't need to weigh up the best deal. This is the deal. Give it a go. I'd encourage you, give it a go.
Thanks, Darrell, very much indeed.